Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. I have a great guest with me. I have Brad Cohen, who is Kodak Black's lawyer, was formerly with Melly as well. And we're gonna get to talk to Brad in 1 minute. Check out my cookbook, coming out in August. Unbelievable, pre-sales, 5,000 copies, signed, numbered, that's it. Gangster Redemption, bestseller, still going crazy. And my cigars. Gave Brad a couple of boxes. This is a great cigar, everybody. Check them out. Go to crookeddiamondcigar.com. Check them out. They're all over the place. They're in shops now. They're everywhere. Check them out. Now, let's get with Brad Cohen. We're going to talk about Kodak Black's case. We're going to talk about the Melly case. We're going to talk about other law things. Brad and I know each other. He's one of the best criminal defense attorneys, not only in the state of Florida, he's also works with the federal government. He's in Puerto Rico. He's on the bar there. So we're going to talk to Brad, all things law. We're going to start out with Cohen. Hey. Nice seeing you, buddy.
Nice to see you too.
Brad, you know, we were talking beforehand, and we were talking about the Kodak Black case.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've had Kodak Black since he was a young kid.
Yeah, for about probably going on 8 years that I've represented him.
8 years?
Yeah.
Wow. He was a kid. He's only a kid now. He's 26.
Yeah, he's a kid.
So you had him since he was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Give the audience just a little breakdown. They might see Kodak, you know, tattoos on the face, getting arrested on BS.
Yeah.
Give my audience a little bit taste. I listened to his music the other day. I actually liked it.
Yeah,
Give me a little bit about who he is as a person.
You know, I've known Kodak for 8 years, and he's just an amazing guy, very charitable, very giving. And I was just having this conversation yesterday with my wife, talking about, like, you know, everybody has their ghosts, their demons, and they deal with it in different ways, psychological issues, the way they grow up, the way they were treated as a kid. So everyone has that baggage with them, and everyone treats it differently. But the thing about Kodak is he's always giving back, and like not being requested to give back. He'll just show up in Pompano with motorcycles or bicycles or backpacks, and he does all these giveaways. And in fact, one time we did a giveaway. Pompano was so angry, this area of Pompano called Golden Acres, it's where he grew up. They were so angry that he was giving away, he just showed up and he started giving away air conditioners, brand new air conditioners, because he heard that the elderly in that area, it was like a heat wave, it was like 96 degrees. So he shows up with a truckload of ACs and he starts handing out these air conditioners, and he hands out, I think we handed out 250 air conditioners.
Wow, you're talking about the window units that are, whatever, $500 each.
Correct.
Or whatever they are.
Correct. So
wow.
Hands out like 250, 300 of these window units. And I get a letter from Golden Acres, because it's the housing authority, that says, you know, Kodak's not allowed to come back onto our property because, you know, we don't want him handing out things and a crowd gathering and all these things. Number one is it was illegal for them to even send the letter, because the housing authority has no say in, if I go visit my aunt and she lives in a housing authority, you can't trespass me off my aunt's house.
Gotcha.
So they had no legal
it's not private property. It's about, right.
You got it. So they had no legal course. They send this letter. They wanted to get a little press from the letter, but it backfired because Kodak is such a good dude. Everybody knew that he was just giving back to the community. So, you know, listen, like I said, everyone has their ups, their downs, their lefts, their rights, but overall, Kodak has always been giving back. You read about it all the time. The things that you don't read about is when he does it anonymously. So he'll anonymously donate to Make-A-Wish for kids to go to Disney. He'll anonymously, you know, he anonymously donated, and he doesn't spread this around. He anonymously donated, there was a officer who was killed by a drunk driver. He had, I think, 1 or 2 kids. He anonymously gave, I think, $20,000 or $25,000 per kid for a college fund.
Wow.
So 2 FBI agents were shot in the line of duty down in Dade. He gave all of their kids, I think there was 4 kids altogether, 2 and 2. He gave them $20,000 or $25,000 a piece for their college fund. So like a lot of those things you don't read about, a lot of those things he does anonymously. Sometimes you'll get like wind of it, the FBI agents, you got wind of it because we had to go through certain steps in order to get the kids the money. But those are things that he really doesn't get a lot of credit for, and it sometimes that weighs on someone. You know how that is. It's like if you're doing all this good, but you keep getting stopped for petty things, driving on a suspended license or not registering your car, I think it starts to weigh on you a little bit.
Well, you know, you do feel like, wow, why are they putting their foot on my neck?
Right.
Especially as a felon, I do, and I know Kodak must as well. Another question with Kodak. I just read in the paper, Kodak was arrested again. Now, he was originally arrested on a in my mind, a bullshit gun charge with a form.
Right.
Could you go over that to tell why did this kid get a federal charge? Federal now. We're talking to big boys. I call it.
Yeah.
You're obviously qualified federal. You do federal cases. Give us what happened in that case and why it really confuses a lot of people.
So it's a 4473 form. It's what the official notice, right? It's when you go to apply for a firearm, you fill out this form and there's a bunch of different questions on it. The questions are you a drug user? Do you have any open cases that would affect interstate commerce? Are you a wanted felon? That's actually a question. And I always think to myself, does anyone put yes, I'm a wanted felon? Like, are you a wanted felon?
Cops show up behind you.
Right. So all these different questions. Are you a U.S. citizen? Because you have to be a U.S. citizen and or here legally under a green card and certain registrations that can allow you to buy a firearm. So there's all these questions. One of those questions is, do you have any open cases that would affect interstate commerce? A lot of people don't know what interstate commerce is. But essentially everything affects interstate commerce.
It's the Hobbs Act.
Correct.
And I was convicted under the RICO, actually. It's under the RICO.
So the feds use the interstate commerce clause just about for every case they bring, because unless you're in Miami and you have a Tech 9 that's made in Miami, you're going to get a gun charge because almost every gun is made outside the state of Florida. So that's what happened. So he got a charge for filling out a form incorrectly. It was a false statement on a government form. That's essentially the charge.
So Kodak Black checks a box, maybe wrongly, even if he made a mistake. They charge him with it. Did they ask him, hey, did you not know? You're his lawyer.
Right.
Was it because, let's face it, they didn't like him? He's a black kid trying to buy a gun?
Yeah, I think what happened, how the whole thing came about was I think they really wanted to get some sort of federal case on him because we were winning on all his cases in state court. And as you start winning those state court cases, you get more and more, you get on a radar, right? And as those wins pile up, the feds think like maybe the state is not doing their job and they're going to come in and they're going to take over. Same thing with the Pooh Shiesty case. I had another rapper, Pooh Shiesty. He had a state case that was a horrible state case. We were beating them up on the state case. He picked up a new charge in the state system. We were beating them up on that new charge, and then the feds came in and took both charges and charged him under the federal rules. And then ultimately we resolved the case because what they do in the federal system is they try to bring in as much dirt as they can, right? You're a gang member, you're this, you're that, and then it's allowed. A lot of that stuff's allowed in federal court that might not be allowed in state court. So it gives them a little bit of an edge in terms of, and the juries are different. I mean, let's just face facts. Federal juries are different than state juries. It's just, that's the way that it is.
You bring back so many memories with me because obviously they did that with me.
Yeah.
Organized crime, Hobbs Act, RICO, and interfering in interstate commerce. People don't know you can actually rob a McDonald's and get a RICO
Correct.
Under Hobbs Act because McDonald's buys its French fries from Idaho.
You got it.
And people don't get that. I said, if they want you, trust me, the feds can take this case.
Correct.
They don't, but they want. Especially this minor gun case. Is a filling out that's a federal form, correct?
Correct.
So is that automatically a federal case?
It is. Now, what's interesting about this, and I say this because of the Hunter Biden case too, what's interesting about this form is that out of, let's say, 20,000 referrals for people filling out that form incorrectly, maybe 4,000 actually make it to a desk, right? So they turn down probably 16,000 of these, right? The 4,000 that makes it to a desk, out of those 4,000, that gets whittled down to like a couple hundred. They only file this charge literally maybe 25 to 150 times a year.
And that's around the whole country.
The whole country. So when they do file this charge, my point is when they do file this charge, they're looking for jail time. They're not looking for a diversion program. So they either don't file this charge at all and say, hey, it's a 4473 charge. The guy's not a prior convicted felon. The guy doesn't have a record, whatever it is. They don't file it at all. Or they file it and they seek prison time. They don't file it to give you a diversion program because, as you know, gun charges aren't eligible for diversion programs. That's pursuant to DOJ's own policy.
Absolutely. That's why, what mine, people don't understand. A gun charge carries 5 years consecutive. Has to run wild on any charge you have.
On any other
and
charge.
then the second robbery is 20 years.
Right.
And it has to run wild.
Right.
So I tell people, trust me, don't use a gun. I use the BB gun.
Right. Listen, the feds. What brings the feds' attention is firearms. Firearms is going to bring a federal attention.
But let me get back to the Kodak.
Sure.
Because I did read in another case, it's not his first gun incident.
Yeah.
But the feds didn't pick that up.
No.
Why? What makes the feds pick up a federal form or checking a box and not, because they can pick up a gun charge anytime they want.
Yeah. His first charge was when he was a juvenile. So when it's a juvenile case, the feds usually don't touch any of that. They're not going to touch any of that. And again, that was an unusual case too. What Kodak has is on paper looks like a lot of criminal history, but when you break down those cases are so ridiculous that he kept pleading these cases out. Before I was his attorney, he kept pleading these cases out because they were such horrible cases. They gave him such amazing deals that he kept pleading them out. So if you bring a really hard, it's not that these cases were great and he got a break. You know, everyone's like, oh, we got so many breaks. That's not what happened. It's the opposite. He got these cases because they wanted to put cases on him, to be honest with you. A lot of these cases were like because of the neighborhood or because of who he's with. He got those cases. Those cases were horrible cases. They weren't good cases. They were not good facts for the state. So the state, like, his very first charge was a kidnapping charge, and we talked about this.
Yes.
5 kids robbed his mom's house. He drove around the neighborhood. He picked them all up, drove them back to his mom's house, and made them apologize to his mom. That was the kidnapping case. So
They charge him with kidnapping for that.
Correct.
I do understand taking a person 100 feet and all that. But what happened to the 5 guys that he did? I mean, he's trying to straighten them out, isn't he?
Right. So the interesting thing is, and I used this in his defense in the federal case when the judge was like, hey, he's got this kidnapping charge. I actually brought in the probable cause affidavit because the probable cause affidavit reads exactly what it is, what the facts were. Out of those 5, I now did background search on those 5 because I wanted to find out, like, where are these 5? I wanted to bring them in as witnesses. 2 of them are serving life sentences for armed invasion with a killing. So first degree or second degree murders. So they're both serving life. One serving, I think, 20 years for an aggravated breaking into somebody's house. Occupied dwelling. The other 2, I couldn't find anything on after that one case. So the other 2, so he had a pretty good, he was better than the system. He straightened 2 out of 5 out. And I told the judge, he had Judge Moreno on his federal case, who I happen to like very much. But I told him about that, and he was getting what was going on. He understood that a lot of these prior criminal actions that he was being scored for were really, the cases were not good cases, and he was pleading these cases out left and right. And once you get into that system of pleading those cases out, once I got on his case, we didn't do that anymore.
I try to tell young people, I said, once they get you, that first one they're going to give you the great deal, the second one you're going to do a few years next life.
Right.
You know, you start getting into that thing with the feds, they don't play.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And I try to, that's why the system needs lawyers.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. They need, and lawyers that are willing to fight. A lot of lawyers are scared of the system.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah.
So Kodak goes to jail on this case, correct?
Right.
He doesn't get probation, nothing on this charge.
Right.
They didn't offer him and he violated?
No, actually, they were looking for 9 years on the case. I think 8 and change on the case. And
what did the judge say?
The judge said, unless you're bringing additional charges or you give me some aggravating circumstances, I'm going to give him, within a guideline sentence. And that's what he gave him. He gave him a guideline sentence. I think it was 46 months on that paperwork offense.
Well, here's a big question for me as a person who knows the federal law real well. How is a non-violent offender, 20 years old, 21, whatever he is.
Yeah, I think he was 22.
22. Non-violent. This is a paper form.
Yeah.
Go to a United States penitentiary, which is the highest level besides the Supermax. And I know, I was in them my whole time. This was wrong. This kind of got me pretty mad about it.
There's as you know, so there's a scoring system where they place you, right? There's a placement sheet. And that placement sheet is so often wrong, and a lot of lawyers don't pay attention to the placement sheet. In advance of pleading someone out or advance of getting sentenced, I make sure I go through, they have the high school diploma, they have their college diploma, if they have a college diploma, They have wherever they live down with the exact code. Everything is done correctly, so they can't say, "Oh, well, we added 2 points because he doesn't have his GED."
And that's in the PSI. People don't explain.
Not the PSI, the placement sheet.
Oh.
The actual.
It comes from the PSI.
Correct. So I make sure they have all that documentation, because often you give it to them and we never got it. We send it to Prairie, Texas, and we say, "Hey, here's his high school diploma." 6 months later, they still don't have it. They're like, "Oh, we rescore him in 6 months. He'll get moved in 6 months." But they can do whatever they want. People don't understand it, and they often do. So in Kodak's case, they were saying, "Oh, well, we didn't have his GED. That's 2 points. Oh, he's under 25. That's 3 points. Oh, he's got a criminal history of XYZ. That's 6 points." So they kept adding up his points. He scores a penitentiary. It was impossible. That scoring system needs to be looked at again, redone again. You get added points because you're younger, because you're younger. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
I remember when they did that.
Yeah.
They actually did that.
So they ended up sending him to Big Sandy, Kentucky, which is 1,500 miles away from here.
And by their own policy, they say to try to keep you within 500 miles of your home.
Correct.
That's what they say.
Correct. And there's penitentiaries they could have sent them to within 500 miles.
Coleman.
Right.
Coleman 1-2.
There you go. Except they're not Big Sandy, and they're not known as the Gladiator Arena. And everyone that I've represented from jump, from when I started till now, I knew about Big Sandy for the past 20 years, because they used to call it the Gladiator Arena. It used to be, that's where they go to toughen you up and to make sure that you're on the straight and narrow. And then after that, maybe they'll send you someplace else. But they do what they want. In fact, in Pooh Shiesty's case, they sent him to California. He's in California. He's a native of Tennessee. His co-defendant got Tennessee. They sent him to California.
Brad, it's not shocking me. It kind of pissed me off. They kept sending me farther away from home.
Correct.
Went from, of course, Florida to Georgia. Then they sent me to Arkansas.
Right.
Then I'm in Mississippi. Don't ask.
Right.
It's weird, but the system can do what they want. And there's even a federal judge can't tell them.
Nope.
They can recommend. They can put it in the sentencing. You always say, let the judge recommend it. Yeah. And then the BOP says, go fuck yourself.
Correct.
And
that's and by the way, that is what every single federal judge says. I can recommend whatever it is, but ultimately it's administrative. They can do whatever they want. And that's why I had such hope for when the BOP director changed from Carval, who was the last one, who I thought was truly horrible, to Colette Peters, who's the new one. I thought this was all going to change. I thought she was going to redo the system. I thought she was going to look at that score sheet, maybe make some adjustments, make sure the First Step Act is being evenly applied, make sure the compassionate release is being evenly applied.
And nothing.
Well,
that's like they had Harley Lappin when I was in, and he was the Bureau of Prisons. Fucked up. But let me get on more with this case.
Sure.
So now we have Kodak Black goes to prison, has a lot of problems. I remember you talking to me about it.
Yeah.
And what happened to me, I said, I think I remember, I said, Brad, this is true. Because the way it was said, exact things that happened to him happened to me.
Yeah.
And you couldn't even make that up. You wouldn't even know how to make that up.
No. So.
And you end up suing the Federal Bureau of Prisons, correct?
Correct. You sue the BOP.
You end up dropping it after he got his pardon.
Yes.
Or clemency.
So we sue the BOP in Washington, D.C. We make it pass a motion to dismiss. We're well on our way, and then our paperwork for the commutation is in, and we end up getting the commutation for him. So out of the 46 months, he ends up serving about 20 months, I think, something in that neighborhood. Which, to be honest with you, for that type of crime, I don't find that to be an obnoxious amount. I think that's probably the right amount.
I don't think any time, to be honest with you. I mean, let's be real people out there. Anybody listen, if you believe he should do jail time for that, comment below. I want to hear about it because I'm going to comment with you. Just comment below on this, what Brett said. I don't believe you should get time.
Right. But that's why, listen, that's why when I speak about other people getting accused of the same thing, in terms of like Hunter Biden being accused of the same thing.
This is what I'm going next.
Right. I don't want to see someone go to prison. That's not my goal, is to see someone go to prison. But what I'm saying is if we're gonna if we're going to compare apples to apples, if we're going to apply the system uniformly, if we're going to do all these things, if you're saying that we're not going to redo the justice system is as it is what it is, then
it needs total rehab. My station knows
correct.
that.
But then it has to be applied evenly. So if I'm scoring prison, how do I get a diversion program on a gun charge? That's what's so unusual. Believe me.
Let me get the right track. You're talking about Hunter Biden had a similar charge.
Correct.
Was it? I mean,
it's a 922 charge. It's a subsection that's
right. There's
very
924C, 922.
But it's a 922 charge that's very similar to the same one that Kodak got charged with. It's lying on a form instead of what he lied on was that he was addicted to drugs at the time that he had the weapon, and he says I wasn't addicted to drugs. Kodak said a different lie.
Right.
So it's literally two sides of the same coin. A lot of people say, oh, it's completely different. It's not completely different. It's the same thing. You score the same thing. It's scored the exact same way. They made a big deal about it, and the Associated Press, I put up an Instagram post that said, hey, does this sound fair? This one got this one got this. There's a great disparity. That's all I said. AP reported me, and they took it down as a false narrative. It's not a false narrative. What I'm saying...
Well, we're not going to take that down.
No, I'm not.
We're going to be talking about that.
Yeah. It's not a false narrative. What it is, it's the same charge. Essentially the same charge. It's the same punishment. It's the same score. Everything is the same. The only thing that's different is Kodak had prior criminal history. But putting that aside, if Kodak had zero criminal history, he'd still be scoring 24 months. So, even if you had zero criminal history, you're still scoring prison on that charge.
You're boggling my mind. As a guy who knows the law, I was charged with 18 U.S.C. 1001.
Right.
Which is actually the same charge as Bill Clinton got charged with.
Right.
And I got convicted.
Right.
I took it to trial, actually. But there's a reason why I did that, to protect my brother, and I ended up winning an appeal for my brother. And I couldn't admit it, it didn't give a shit, my record's so bad.
Right.
But anyway, it's the same kind of charge. It's lying. It's lying on the phone.
Right.
And the same thing you're. So Hunter Biden gets off and gets a diversion program. And Kodak Black, and I'm not going to say why, because he's a minority with a little bit of a questionable, bullshit. I watched Kodak Black for a long time. Yesterday and the day before.
Yeah.
Listen to his music.
Yeah.
This kid is not a bad kid, man.
No,
I come from a bad kid.
No,
I was a bad kid.
He's actually a good kid.
But anyway, Glenn, why? Okay, we're gonna be honest. Do you think it was all politics?
I think every case is politics, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think politics has to do with every case. The reason why, every case that has someone of note, it's always got some politics, right? It's like either they're doing the wrong thing because it's someone of note, or they're going the other way because it's someone of note. Generally speaking, you get the worst end of the stick when you're someone of note because they want to make an example of you. Wesley Snipes doesn't pay his taxes and they put him in prison for 3 years. People, holy shit, they take notice. When Bob Smith doesn't pay his taxes and they put him in prison for who cares? Nobody really cares. So one of the things that the federal system says they want to do is they want to deter future people from doing the same type of crime. So that's one of the big things, right? So in this case, by getting nothing, number one is that goal of deterrence is out the window, right? And then number two is it just gives the common man the feeling that I'm going to get screwed, but this guy's not because of who he is. And that's really, that's what undermines the confidence in a system. That's what you have to understand. It's bigger than just one case here or one case there. And it undermines the system. Same thing with Felicity Huffman and
with the bribery.
The Full
College
House.
tuition program.
Right, Full House. I don't remember her name, but she's great. They get charged with this. I'm buying my way into college, right? First of all, everybody who's completely loaded buys their kid into college one way or the other. They donate a gazebo. They donate a music hall.
A wing.
A wing. It's just that. It's been done for 100 years and it'll be done for 100 years more. So that they pick these individuals out and said, we're going to prosecute to the fullest these people because they gave a coach $500 to get or $500,000 to get their kid into school. So you got this Felicity Huffman who took responsibility, has no prior criminal history. She's I don't know, 50 years old or 55 years old. Obviously, she's not on a path of criminal history. There's no deterrence here because this is just what's... If I can tell you every time I heard that, you know, a kid with a 1,000 on his LSATs got into Harvard because his dad bought a gazebo, I mean, it's every year. But putting that aside, that the judge would say, we have to give you at least 2 weeks in federal prison. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the judge. The judge felt so strongly, and the state and the government felt so strongly about giving her prison that they gave her 2 weeks. She had to go surrender, change out, get her bedding, all these things. But before you know it, she's gone. Like she's there for 12 days. The fact, when you compare that to the Hunter Biden thing where he gets nothing, a diversion program. Why wasn't this Felicity Huffman offered a diversion program?
Well, and I'm going to go, you're 100% right. And I kind of understand why they do it. And I'm pretty surprised about the federal judge because most federal judges don't give a fuck. They do what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a federal judge.
You're right.
You know that as well as I do.
Sure.
Don't fuck with them. I tell people, you want to fuck with someone? Tell the cop to go fuck himself. Tell the prosecutor. Don't tell a fucking judge. I watched the judge put a kid in 10 years, getting 18 months. He says, yeah, go appeal it. Took the kid 3 years to appeal the case.
Yeah.
So don't fuck with a federal judge.
No,
you know that more than anybody.
That's not a good idea. Don't fuck with any judge, but it's not a good idea.
A federal, they're God.
No.
Besides, I want to end this on Kodak Black,
sure.
Obviously with Biden. I'm going to call it what it is, and I want my audience to really comment on it, and we'll get you some questions to answer at a later date. And Brad's information will be in this video as well. What do you think is going to? I mean, Biden got off, and I think. Listen, I don't want to see anybody go to jail either.
Right.
I'm 100% with that. I don't think neither of them should have went to jail. Let's figure that. But I don't like the disparity.
Right.
But besides the disparity, Kodak Black is now was violated, and I don't. This probation would violate him. I don't know who that is. For just missing a drug because they have a color code, green, red. If you call your color, you got to go and piss. Yeah. He missed one because he's at a charity event.
Right.
Correct.
So correct. It was.
What's going to happen?
Nothing happened.
What about the case? He was caught with 31 pills, but he has a prescription.
Yeah. So let me give you the whole. I'll give you the whole deal. So he was stopped, quote unquote, randomly. They said for a bad tag on his car, and then when they stopped him, it's very interesting because it's very involved. They've been following Kodak for months and months and months, and they've never gotten anything on him.
Sounds like they got a hard on
because he doesn't do anything. Correct, and the kid really doesn't do anything. He goes to the studio, he does his work, gets out of the studio, he does some filming and things like that. But he really doesn't. He's not out every night. He doesn't do anything crazy. So I think they were getting more and more frustrated, and they pull him over after he came back from a show in Michigan. They were originally. I think they wanted to raid his plane, but I think the higher-ups even said, that's extreme, we're not going to do that. And they waited until he left the airport, they pulled him over, they said his car smelled like marijuana, they searched the car, they found 31 pills. What's interesting is they only turned 29 pills into the lab, and they have
no surprise there.
No, they have all kinds of excuses for that, and we'll go through that at a later date. But, so...
Did the feds do this?
No. The feds were kind of involved in it, but they're trying to distance themselves from it because they don't want to be. They don't want to be
so petty. I mean, even they can see it. It's bullshit.
And they don't want to be deposed and all these other things, so they kind of hand it off to the state. And so, long story short is he bonded out on that charge, and instead of giving him the standard $250,000 bond, the judge at the time gave him a lower bond of $75,000. But with a pretrial condition. So that means he has to call in 2 or 3 times a week. You can't travel without telling them. You can't do shows. And I never make excuses for my clients, but I do say some of my clients, their jobs, like if I represent a truck driver, it's almost impossible to be on pretrial, right?
Me.
You gotta call in. You gotta do this. They want you there in 2 hours. And if you represent a truck driver, it's not a good fit. So for Kodak literally works from like midnight to 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning in the studio. That's when he does his work. And then he'll go to sleep. He won't wake up until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, have lunch, at that point, breakfast, who knows. And then rinse and repeat. Well, the pretrial is only open till 4 o'clock. So, it's just not a good fit. Now, I'm not making an excuse for anybody because it is what it is. And we stayed on pretrial for as long as we did. But on the day that they called, his birthday is June 11th. We were doing a charity event the next day, and he was supposed to call in on, I think, June 9th or 10th. And it's just an automated call. You call in, and if they say your number's purple and you have a purple, you have to get over there within 3 hours and drop urine. So I told his pretrial officer, call me if you have any trouble. If his number comes up and he doesn't come in, call me or text me, and I'll get him over there. No text, no call, no email, no nothing. And not that they have to, but it's sketchy when they don't.
It's a courtesy that should be given.
Correct. At least to the lawyer.
I was just going to go there.
Okay. So he missed that urine test. We dropped urine the week after that. Once we found out that there was a warrant and everything, because we weren't really thinking about that. We were concentrating on this charity event where it was for Jack and Jill. And Jack and Jill, if people don't know, is a great charity. It's in Broward County. And
they give diapers and food and all this to lower income people. That's great.
It's a great charity. And Kodak supports them 100%. So he did a free charity concert. You can't just set up a concert in 2 hours. So we were setting up music, what microphones to use, all these different things. And I think that's why he forgot to call for this color. So anyways, we dropped urine a couple weeks later. It was fine. We went in front of the judge on Monday, which was what's the date on Monday? Whatever, June 25th, I think, right?
No idea.
Whatever, Monday.
I don't know what today is.
Whatever. We went into court on Monday, and on Monday, what I requested from the court was, number one is to get him off a pretrial, set a standard bond, and it's just not a good fit. So the judge agreed. We set a standard bond. We did a walkthrough at the jail. He went in, paid his additional $175. He came right out. It was 48 minutes, 50 minutes. So it worked.
That's fast, because normally they don't do that.
No, it was just
Give him a little credit there.
It was great.
The charity for what?
Oh yeah, BSO. Listen, BSO has been pretty good with us. There's never been.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, we never had a problem with the jail. The jail's, people are cool. So he went in, did his thing. He went right back out. All good. And now the case is pending. He's off of pretrial. He's got the 250, and we're working the case. And the case is it's a very, very
strong case on your part. Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, and I'm gonna say this: when can we expect a final result on this case?
I think in the next couple months.
Good enough. Brad, we're gonna get you back. I'd love to get you back all the time on another case, a lot of stuff. And we'd like to do more stuff with you. You're a genius with the law.
Anytime.
I really appreciate you. Anything to say to these guys? Stay out of trouble.
Yeah, I always stay out of trouble, but if you get in trouble, give me a call.
Listen, I got his number. He knows that. But everybody, yes. You just heard from Brad Cohen, who was Kodak Black's lawyer, who was YNW Melly's lawyer. He's a bunch of other rappers and people. Stars. Dennis Rodman. He's been a lawyer for a lot of people. And why? Because he's good. So you're going to hear more from Brad. Please, everybody, stay tuned. Comment below. Let us know. Like, share, do all that. And we'll see you soon, and make good choices. Take care, everybody.